There is someone who said that Africa is the lung of humanity, a humanity that is in search of hope and renewal. I think the growth of Christianity in Africa can become a source of renewal to the rest of the world. Faith is not an abstraction. It's woven into the very fabric of life. And that's why it's very hard to find in some languages in Africa the word for religion. It doesn't exist, because whatever we define as religion is actually woven into it's a way of being.
The importance of trees to our planet cannot be overstated. Not only do they absorb carbon dioxide and produce oxygen, they also provide habitats for the planet's creatures, fix and recycle nutrients, and provide wood for building and fuel for energy. But another critical role that is often overlooked is the protection that trees provide, as was tragically revealed here in southern Malawi when Cyclone Freddy hit in March 2023.
A state of emergency has been declared in Malawi after a tropical storm, Freddy, struck the country for a second time, killing more than 100 people.
It is one of the strongest and the longest lasting storms to ever be recorded in the Southern Hemisphere.
11,000 people have been displaced, and they will need emergency assistance in terms of shelter and in terms of food.
Rescue workers describe being completely overwhelmed by the rainfall and mudslides.
The day this occurred was the early hours of Monday, and it started with the darkness or mist covering all this area, and there was a big sound that sounded, and people were filled with fear. And when they looked at this area, they found that water with mud had already passed through this area. And we found so many people, some of them were dead, others were still alive. There were also some people that whose bodies were not recovered. These are believed to have been buried by these big rocks which we see. There was a pool of blood, which is an indication that under these big rocks, probably there was another person who died and was buried by these ones. If the power of water was able to move some of these big rocks from the mountain coming down here, and some of these rocks can weigh thousands and thousands of tons, and yet they were rolled from the mountain. A person, a human being who can only weigh 63, 70 kilograms cannot resist. This suffering has come just because people made mistakes. This area where people built, it was illegal. The government did not allow people to construct houses. Secondly, people have been cutting trees in the mountains there. So these two mistakes contributed to this big loss that we have suffered as a country.
Here, the interconnection between people and the place they inhabit is seen so starkly. The dependence on solid fuels for cooking had led to extensive deforestation in order to meet the demand for firewood and charcoal. This, in turn, had resulted in a loss of important protection that trees offer in slowing down rainfall and maintaining soil structure.
Huge component of especially the urban dwellers, they use charcoal that is unsustainably produced. So what it means is people go into the natural forest, the forests that probably under customary or gazetted forests, just enter in there, cut down trees the way they want, and produce charcoal from unsustainable kilns. And I think at some point people were saying that they estimate that they have to sort of like take down 10 tons of trees to produce 1 ton of charcoal. Right. And this charcoal, unfortunately enough, is like 74% of that is used in the cities. So in other words, the 4 cities of Malawi, they are the largest culprit that are decimating our forests, propelling the charcoal market.
Not only is the charcoal industry decimating Malawi's forests, but there are serious health consequences to using wood and charcoal as fuel for cooking.
The Ministry of Health estimates in Malawi that over 13,000 people die annually from smoke-complicated or related illnesses, and most of them are women and children, just because they are the ones that are found in the kitchen.
The same trees that functioned as the planet's lungs are now the very thing that chokes our airways and steals our final breath. This interrelation between people and planet isn't just experienced as a theological or academic notion, but as an everyday reality with very real consequences. Yet, at the same time, our local Malawian partners pointed out an obvious tension. Caring for creation in this situation might seem quite straightforward. Don't cut down all the trees. But the reality in Malawi is that there's widespread poverty, and if they cannot use firewood or charcoal to cook, there simply isn't any alternative. So how are Christians to demonstrate care for creation in this context? Is it okay for us to use the world's resources? Over the years, CREATIVenergie have been working to offer alternative solutions to reduce the reliance on firewood as a principal source of fuel, particularly for cooking. Much of our work has focused on biogas as an alternative fuel, but for contexts in which biogas cannot be introduced, there are also some simple technologies that can help firewood burn more efficiently, produce less smoke, and reduce the overall amount of firewood required to cook a meal. One of these is the rocket stove, which we've been prototyping and introducing to our Malawian partners, J-Life Ministries.
The advantage of that is a higher velocity, a higher speed of hot air hitting the pot, the bottom of the pot. And then that will go through the column, the combustion chamber. Now you can hear the rocket going. Do you know what I mean? Now it's going well.
One of the disadvantages of cooking using the immense cooks, it is that after finishing the cooking, it's like you have sprayed the whole body of yours with smoke because of this. But this one, it's very easy. This is a rocket stove. It has a hole down here where we insert our firewood, and inside it has a chumon where the heat comes up, and on top of it, it's where we put our pot, where we cook our food. And this thing, this tin thing outside here, it helps the heat to go direct to our pot so that our food should be well cooked, and it helps the heat not to be scattered outside the rocket stove. So sometimes when we are cooking on the open air or open fires, with that smoke, it makes us maybe to have sneezing or having cough, and giving us maybe other difficulties in our lungs because of smoke that is coming out from the firewood. But because of this, all the challenges are gone. We'll be having only the heat, no smoke.
We have also been working with Rose, a local seamstress, to design and make heat retention bags that can further reduce the amount of fuel needed to cook certain foods. The bag is easy to make at home and can be made out of cotton and stuffed with a variety of insulative materials. The idea behind the heat retention cooker is to start the cooking process using your regular stove or 3-stone fire. Once the food has been partially cooked, it is then transferred to the heat retention bag, which slow cooks the food using the heat that is trapped inside the bag. This method of cooking is particularly suited to types of food which require a great deal of time and fuel to cook. Beans, for example, are a staple food here in Malawi because they're cheap to buy. However, they take a very long time to cook and therefore consume a lot of firewood and charcoal. The heat retention bag solves this problem because you're only using a small amount of fuel to start the cooking process and the rest is done in the bag. Simple technologies such as rocket stoves and heat retention cookers show how a small change can help us into a more considered relationship with the natural world and its resources. It was Dr. Rowan Williams who said, "Christians need to regain a sense that our relationship to the earth is about communion, not consumption." This idea of communion provides the foundation for how we can live in relation to creation. When Christians take communion, we remember that our life was only made possible by the laying down of another. This is a truth seen not only on the cross, but in the very act of daily survival. To live, we must eat. To eat, something, whether plant or animal, must give up its life in order to sustain ours. Communion, moreover, is an act of identification, unity, belonging, and repentance. So what could it mean to live in communion with creation, rather than simply seeing it as something to be consumed?